Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you
We
can
can
start.
hear.
Start, sir?
You can start. Yeah.
Okay. A very good evening and hearty welcome to one and all gathered here for the last keynote session of our virtual international conference on implementation of NEP 2020 in higher education, opportunities and challenges. National Education Policy 2020 strives to take the nation to new heights of development and provides more and more opportunities to the youth. The proper mapping of interest, ability, and demand can be given fully to our students by first exploring the various opportunities and challenges. To cope up with the rapid changes in the globalization age and to develop a knowledge-based society, the government has been supporting the educational reform with the aim to prepare and strengthen the country. The major goal of educational reform is to have students participate more actively and legitimately in learning communities, including participation in formulating and evaluating questions and problems and constructing and evaluating hypotheses, evidences, arguments, and conclusions. To discuss on the pedagogical reforms in higher education, we have with us the eminent personality, Dr. S. Srikanta Swamy, Academic Consultant, Research and Analysis Wing, NAAC, Bengaluru, India. Sir is Professor and former Additional Director, Center for Research, Christ University, Bengaluru. Having 45 years of teaching experience, he has 25 years of experience as a professor of education at IAC RV Teachers College, Bengaluru. His area of expertise include science education, educational psychology, multimedia systems of education, research methodology, and measurement and evaluation. Dr. Srikanta Swamy obtained doctorate in the area of critical thinking skills from Bengaluru University. Under Sir's able supervision, 16 candidates completed their PhD, 12 have completed their MPhil. And Sir has contributed as 5 research projects sponsored by DSERT, NECRT, and Christ University, and also reviewed 2 major research projects. He has published about 50 research papers in peer-reviewed journals. Sir has authored notable books which include D.A. Science Textbooks of Karnataka and also published so many handbooks by DSERT. Dr. Srikanta Swamy was the chief and co-editor for 3 books published by NAAC. Sir has organized several in-service programs for the benefit of teachers, teacher educators, and department officials, and also been chair and invited speaker for various seminars and conferences in national and international level. Sir has contributed articles for newspaper and audiovisual programs for All India Radio and TV. With lot of interest, he developed lot of multimedia lecture materials, few in association with Azim Premji Foundation. Sir is an active member in lot of communities. He was ex-honorable secretary and president of All India Association for Education and Research Karnataka chapter. He is the Empower Committee member of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. He is a former executive member of Karnataka State Quality Assessment Organization, NCTE visiting team member, and chairperson for School Syllabus Committee of Karnataka, Textbook Committee, and BA syllabus also. Sir has received felicitations from more than 20 colleges across the nation. For his excellent contribution in the field of education, Dr. Srikanta Swamy won many awards and recognitions. He is the recipient of NCERT Award by New Delhi, Drona Puraskar and Jnana Saraswati from voluntary organizations, Bharat Gaurav Award for Meritorious Services, Vidya Spurti Award from NIVM Bangalore, Northeast Award for Excellence in Education, Vinayashri Award from Vinay Foundation, and Lifetime Achievement in Academic Research and Noble Teaching. The distinguished profile of our resource person shows he is the right person for this session. Sir, we feel proud and privileged to welcome you for this session.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
We are eagerly waiting to hear from you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Reverend Father Augustine, it gives me great pleasure once again to meet you in this virtual mode. My dear Professor Edward, and Dr. Aruna Devi, and all the participants from all over India as well as outside India also, warm welcome to you from my side. It gives me great pleasure to be in the midst of all people who have committed for the cause of good education, quality education. And today I'm extremely privileged to address all the members who have involved in the higher education, and especially a particular concept known as the pedagogy and pedagogical principles related to higher education. I think then you're all familiar about the national education policy, and you have been discussing since yesterday the main highlights of this education policy 2020. And I'm fortunate enough to associate myself with the 1986 policy. And I have actively involved and disseminated a lot of information pertaining to some of the highlights what they have given in the National Education Policy of 1986. And I am fortunate enough to disseminate some of the highlights of this National Education Policy 2020 with much focus upon the pedagogical aspects. Now, this is very important, and everywhere people are talking about the content enrichment, and but higher education, somewhere or the other, I think this area of pedagogy, according to me, is slightly neglected. But thanks to UGC's initiative, UGC has established earlier academic staff colleges. Now they have been converted into human resource development centers, UGC HRDC. And I have been associating myself with the Mysore UGC HRDC center. Then Bangalore, recently I've addressed them. And I'm fortunate enough to share my knowledge to the experienced people so that they can take it to the practical situation in order to implement some of the aspects related to our training as well as pedagogy. Now, I have prepared the slides, and through which I wanted to just share my knowledge. I would like to upload. Yes, and let me, okay. I think my slides are visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I would like to start with this statement. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Albert Einstein. Therefore, education, we think that we are giving the knowledge and making the students to learn the facts. But our real education should go beyond this. And ultimately, it should make us to train our mind. Therefore, the purpose of education is to train the mind by providing the necessary, up-to-date knowledge, which is very much relevant for them to use it for the sake of acquiring the skills, as well as apply the same thing in order to see the welfare of the society in large. The National Education Policy 2020 lays particular emphasis on the development of the creative potential of each individual. This is very important. Every individual is potentially divine. Therefore, it is the concern and it is the responsibility of every teacher educator or every teacher to nurture and nourish the creative talent that is present among the learners. It is based on the principle that education must develop not only cognitive capacities, but both the foundational capacities of literacy on one hand and numeracy on the other hand should also be developed. I think these two are very much essential when we are talking about the elementary education. Then as and when we move to higher education, more emphasis should be given to the development of critical thinking as well as problem solving. That's what the 21st century skills, when people are talking, they highlights on these aspects, these two, namely, one is developing the critical thinking skill, which is very much essential. And the other one is make the students to acquire the problem solving skills. During 1960s, we were talking only about development of creativity. The creativity gives a lot of freedom for the learner to express and come out with as many alternatives as possible. But it is a critical thinking that will judge which one is suitable, which one is not suitable, which one is applicable, which one can be implemented. It is the critical thinking that decides. That's why the National Education Policy also highlights on the need for developing the cognitive skills as well as problem-solving skills. When we think of higher education, according to me, these four aspects are which are very, very important. Number one is quality of teaching. You take the example of any developed country, and it is developed because the quality of education is good. If you want quality education, quality of teaching should be equally good. Therefore, the first and the foremost point is we have to give more importance for quality teaching rather than merely carrying on the teaching inside the classrooms. The second point in higher education is to reach out the people using whatever the knowledge we are creating in the universities or the colleges. That knowledge should be disseminated to the society. Therefore, the second point what I am discussing here is how far the teachers can take part in the extension activities so that they can reach out and make their knowledge visible to the society, make that knowledge applicable to the society. Now, friends, as you the COVID-19 has brought a lot of problems, and the research area that was taken not so seriously because of this COVID-19 everywhere, the research culture has multiplied. Research consciousness has increased. Research bent of mind is seen everywhere. People are having healthy competitions to come out with the vaccine for this COVID-19 virus. Thereby, whatever that the research that they are doing inside the laboratory, we expect that kind of research to go to the society. That's why from laboratory situation to the society, lab to the field, lab to the agriculture, in that way, extension and one more point I mentioned here, research, these two should go together. Therefore, the third one is about the publication. In higher education, whatever the new knowledge we are creating, we have to publish the new knowledge in refereed journals and make sure that this knowledge has potential to develop various kinds of the technology that adds for the knowledge economy. Therefore, the last one, as I mentioned, the research is equally important because the universities will create the new knowledge and the people are there to utilize the knowledge for the welfare of the society. Almost all the universities who have involved in research will come out with very, very interesting ideas. A simple experiment like LED. Initially, it was a simple experiment, but the outcome of the LED you can see everywhere, how it has spread and how it is useful for the humanity. In the same way, when we think of higher education, emphasis should be upon teaching, emphasis should be upon extension, emphasis upon research, and emphasis upon the publication, which is equally important. Now, I think we are all familiar about this teaching. I did not say, but one note I wanted to highlight here. Many will say teaching means sharing of knowledge, sharing of experience. Then some people will say the main purpose of the teaching is to develop the psychological as well as intellectual growth of the individual. Some also will say the purpose of teaching is to provide good philosophical foundation, good psychological foundation, as well as good social foundation. All these three foundations are very much essential when we are teaching to the students. Then teaching is a pre-planned behaviors informed by learning principles and child development theory. Therefore, whenever we are teaching to the students, we keep the learning theories, learning principles on one hand, and the child development theory on the other. And using these two, we are going to impart the knowledge so that the students can pursue the knowledge, receive the knowledge, and which can result in effective learning. But now with all these things, ultimately we say the purpose of teaching is to process the information. Therefore, teaching is an information processing technique, but not information giving technique. It is a processing technique. Then teaching involves many factors. Though many of us, we are teaching, some of our students will like the teaching of only few teachers, but not all. Why it is so? Therefore, there are many factors which are operating for effective teaching as well as effective learning. The first and the foremost factor is, one is motivation. Therefore, whoever is teaching, without motivation for the teacher, without motivation for the learner, good teaching cannot happen and good learning cannot happen. Therefore, this is the first important component I am stressing here, because when you think of a good teaching or effective teaching, many people will say good teaching makes people to learn, but very effective teaching makes students to be inspired. Therefore, if you want to inspire the learners in such a way that whatever you are teaching inside the class, if you want them to take you to a very higher level, motivation is important. Maybe teaching of chemistry, teaching of physics, teaching of mathematics, teaching of geography, any subject as a matter of fact. The second, and the motivation can be induced by the two aspects, namely one is called the internal motivation, the other one is called the external motivation. It is not the UGC salary that attracts the teachers and gives satisfaction. In my opinion, the commitment of the teacher, his involvement in teaching, and his concern for teaching, his concern in making every individual to develop the personality, that gives better satisfaction compared to the external factors. That's why we say external factor is also important for motivation. Internal factor is also important. That's why we say internal motivation and external motivation, both are necessary for a teacher to make his teaching very competitive, very effective. The second point is about the content enrichment. We are living in a knowledge era. Everywhere knowledge is expanding. 5 years back, what knowledge we had and what knowledge we are having right now, if we compare, lot of difference you will see. Therefore, the knowledge is expanding everywhere, and many branches are also coming up. That's why the national education policy says, earlier we had the linear approach of teaching and making the students to specialize in one or two areas. Now they are saying, since the knowledge is expanding so much, it is very much necessary to make the students to have knowledge of more than 2 disciplines, 3 disciplines. That's why they are talking about multidisciplinary approach. And through multidisciplinary approach, it is possible for the students to have sound basis of many subjects on one hand, and as and when they proceed to very higher education, they can specialize in 1 or 2 subjects. Therefore, the content enrichment is important. How do we expect our professors who are teaching at a higher level to enrich their content? One content can be through the digital source. Content can be through the printed source. Under printed, so many varieties are there. Under digital, we have got so many websites are there. Therefore, it is very much essential for a good teacher to keep this aspect, namely, unless he has got a better hold about the content, whatever he is teaching, it is very difficult to attract the students. 20 years back, it was fine. All students were depending upon the teacher. They were sitting sincerely to listen to the teacher. Now things have changed. Students also can learn, even outside the classroom, they can learn. Therefore, since students are learning and coming already with some kind of basic information with them, to take them further, it will be a real challenging situation for the teacher. Therefore, I believe with my 45 years of teaching experience that the teacher preparation is very, 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 very important. The third component is with respect to the teaching skills. Many teachers are having good control over the content aspect. Maybe chemistry, physics, sir, my teacher knows very well, fingertips, he is a moving encyclopedia. But ultimately says what to do, sir. We are not happy about his teaching. Many will say like that. Therefore, I feel teaching skills are important because through the teaching skills, he can present the content effectively and he can see that his effective teaching results in effective learning. Therefore, and many teaching skills are there, but in higher education, we say around 6 to 7 skills are more than enough. One is motivating them, how to motivate the learners. Second point, we'll say how to explain certain concepts, principles, theories which are present in the subject matter, whatever the teacher is teaching. Then the next one, we say how to probe some content area through questioning, because poor understanding may not help the learner to take up good research. Better understanding of the content makes the teachers to accept the research and do the research effectively. Therefore, that is another important skill is there. Then the skill of illustration, which is also very important. Like that, there are 5 to 6 important skills we speak, but lower level 10 skills we speak. And West California speaks about more than 18 teaching skills which are necessary to make the teacher's teaching very effective. The next one is about the pedagogy, which is equally important. The content means every teacher come across the 3 basic questions like, what is that I'm going to teach? What is that I'm teaching, the content area? Why should I teach? Because I have specialized in that particular area to teach. They are good. They can answer these 2 questions. What to teach? And then why should I teach? But the third one is equally important and equally difficult. That is, how can I teach? How can I teach? I think that is the question related to pedagogy. How can I teach means the students' individual differences are there among the students. Their entry behaviors are also quite different and their interests varies. And because of all these things, unless you understand the learner in the true perspective, it is very difficult to teach whatever may be your control over the content. But it is the pedagogy that helps you to have a smooth sail in the classroom to reach the learner. Next one is about the use of instructional materials. Many digital materials are there. How do we use these materials to make our teaching very effective? I think the Brunner and other people have given a lot of illustrations. Like lower level, you should be more towards pictures, picturizations. And as and when you go to higher level, more towards symbolic way of presentation, there are many models are available. Then classroom management is equally important. When we think of the college students, they are already grown up. Their exposure is very good. Their entry behavior is very fine. And some of them may be having their content level almost very close to the level of the teacher. Because of that, sometimes in classrooms, we come across some discussions, some undesirable discussion that goes on here and there. Teacher finds it very difficult to control. Without proper control of the classroom, whatever he is going to teach, it becomes a waste. Therefore, we speak about the classroom management. And lastly is about the evaluation. What is that we have taught? How far it has reached the students? What is the evidence for us to know that our teaching has resulted in effective learning? Under that, we come across evaluation. Under that, it can be a formative evaluation. It can be a summative evaluation, like that. Now, the teaching means earlier people thought that using chalk and talk. Even professors, they were using. I have come across many professors earlier. Now, recently, they are exposed to the digital media. But our professors only were used to using their chalk and days to talk and days to explain. All theories through the blackboard only. Now, those days have gone. New generation learners may not like it. Therefore, a teacher is expected to follow scientific method, scientific approach to teach. Therefore, earlier we were talking about the subject-centered teaching. Subject is important, but not the learner. Now there is a paradigm shift from subject-centered to the learner-centered. Therefore, we say whatever we are teaching, it is for the learner. Curriculum is for the learner. Teacher is for the learner. Therefore, what is the commitment of the teacher for the learner? Sometimes in higher education, we say, I am teaching, I have prepared. If you are interested, you can sit and learn. Otherwise, you can go. That is not the correct way. You have to attract the students, motivate them, and you have to convince them indirectly that because of you, I am here. Because of you and for your future, the content is here. Unless we make the students to understand like that, it is very difficult. No doubt, we say teaching is the noblest profession. I agree. And it is a two-way process. That is also fine. It is an information processing technique, fine. But many small researchers have proved that in most of the classrooms, dear friends, teaching is going on. Most of the classroom, the teaching is going on. But in how many classrooms the effective teaching is going on? Or though effective teaching is going on, in how many cases the effective learning has happened? I think a big question mark is there. Teaching and learning, lot of gap is there. Therefore, there is a need to bridge the gap. Therefore, in the digital era, no doubt the students are capable of learning certain things on their own. But there are technical terms, there are technical subjects, there are technical theories. I think only in a face-to-face situation, they'll be more comfortable in learning. Therefore, I think the teacher should have a different type of orientation towards modern teaching, wherein he has to keep the new generation learners on one hand, their expectations on the other hand, and he has to teach. And teaching, it is a process of facilitating the learners to develop. Therefore, there is a paradigm shift. We say teacher is a facilitator, maybe a PU college teacher, maybe a degree college teacher, or maybe a university teacher. He should be a facilitator. And he has to provide the facilities to the learner. He has to give tips to the learner. He has to bring in some kind of earlier knowledge to the learner. Therefore, there is a paradigm shift in the modern way of teaching. Then, teaching should help the learners to adjust well socially as well as psychologically with the members of the society. Therefore, long-range goal of teaching is do not be happy if your students score the marks because of your teaching or in spite of your teaching. Do not be happy, but somewhere or the other, all effective professors should keep the target that my students, if he gets a good job, fine, my teaching is good. If my student becomes a good parent, my teaching is good. If my teaching helps the person to become a worthy citizen of a country, member of a society, it is good. There was somewhere or the other, when we think of teaching, we should have the immediate goals on one hand, long-range goals on the other hand. Keeping these two together, we have to equip ourselves, we have to empower ourselves, and then we have to teach. I think that's what I wanted to highlight when I'm talking about the teaching here. Ultimately, it should help the learners to get good knowledge, good competence, skills, and attitude to become a good citizens and good human beings. I have traveled. I had gone to America almost 3 times. Then European countries also have visited. Lot of autonomy is given to the learner. Then lot of dependence is not there. Most of them are independent because it is the education that made them to see, that made them to apply. Our theoretical way of providing the education to make the student to get the degree, it is of no use. There was somewhere or the other, I am representing a quality organization like NAAC, National Assessment Accreditation Council, wherein we also believe that good teaching is very, very, very important. All those institutions which have acquired A+ or A grade, in most of those institutions, to the best of my knowledge, they have given teaching on a priority, and the teaching is monitored very well, supervised very well, and that's why I think they are able to do so much. And here one point I would like to mention here, I think knowledge-wise, fine, our students are very good. Competence-wise, I think we have to still think. Regarding the skills, we think about life skills. We think about technical skills. We think about job-oriented skills. That's why I think our Prime Minister is also very much keen in developing the skills among the students. The new education policy is also highlights. They may come out with little more special programs. Already PM has initiated, but little more programs will be there to develop the skills, because without knowledge, without competency, without skills, I think they cannot contribute anything in their job field. Then the attitude is equally important. Studies have revealed 85% of the student's success depends upon his attitude. I don't know. That's what experts are saying. Only remaining 15% is because of his scholastic achievement in the certificate. Sir, I got 98, I got 95, I got A plus grade, etc. But 85%, wherever they go, it is the attitude that attracts them. It is the attitude that makes them to stick on to the job and contribute to the job. Now, friends, when we think of the teacher, I mentioned about teaching. Then I mentioned about the what are the aspects that we have to see when we think of a teaching to the modern students or the new generation students. Now I am just slowly moving on to the multiple roles of teachers. There was a period where if I am a physics teacher, teaching physics and coming back is fine. Teaching mathematics and going back is fine. Now our policy also insists that every teacher should perform multiple roles. One as a leader, knowledge worker, as I mentioned, whatever the knowledge in which you are specialized, you have to just share the knowledge. You must be a facilitator. Students will ask me, where can I get the laboratory facilities to do my experiment? Where can I get this journal? What is the meaning of high impact journal? Then where is the book available regarding this particular area? He must be a friend philosopher. He must be a facilitator. Now, friend, the fourth point is equally important, mentoring. Now, in Western countries, mentoring process is very good. It is working very well. Whereas in our country, I think slowly it is speaking of this concept. Earlier, people were not familiar. They were familiar about guidance. They were familiar about counseling. But in higher education, they were not familiar about the mentoring process. Our NAAC also insists, our NAAC manual also insists that, do you have a mentoring process in your institution? Give details. How do you mentor the students? I think there's a beautiful concept. It works very well. If I mentor my student, in my opinion, in such a way, with all commitment, then in my absence, he should be able to carry on what all the activities, whatever I am doing, he should be able to carry on successfully. He can be a better substitute for me. In that way, if I can prepare my own students to that extent, I think really I'm a good mentor. In the area of music teachers have done such wonderful mentoring. That's why they have created such great musicians. Artists, their teachers have contributed so much, mentored them so much, therefore they have become good artists. Now, friends, here I'm asking the question, what is this mentoring process that I'm talking? To what extent it is there in your institution? Then how do you make this concept to be disseminated to your own friends who are working in other places? Scaffolding is very important. Hand-holding is very important. That's why in the NAAC we say, we are ready to handhold the institutions who want any kind of support. We always will say, we are ready to handhold. Many institutions have not come for accreditation. Since you are organizing this program through your IQAC, I am mentioning this point. Many people are afraid of accreditation because they are afraid of the grade. Fear of grade is one important factor, as I have noticed, which makes them not to come unless they are very much confident that they are going to get the grade. Therefore, we told them, don't worry. If you do not know the accreditation process, NAAC is there to help you. NAAC is there to provide financial help. You can organize an awareness program. We are going to organize assessors orientation program. If some of you are interested to become the assessor in a peer team visit, you can. Therefore, hand-holding concept we are having, UGC and UGC's Paramarsh scheme. I am also a little bit aware about this. Therefore, the Paramarsh schemes also, they are giving so much of money and asking a very good institutions, maybe like Kristu Jayanti and others, you can take the lead under Paramarsh scheme, invite some 8 or 10 institutions who have not gone for accreditation or who have gone for cycle 1, cycle 2, not cycle 3. Handhold exercise you can do, help them, build confidence, and they can come forward. Then a teacher is expected to be a social engineer. Social commitment is there. I taught in the class and my work is over. No, it is not possible. Encourage for active learning, clarify the doubts of learners, clear the barriers in learning, very important. Whenever you are teaching, students can come from the rural area. Students can come from a low socio-economic area. That's what our national education policy also says. Kindly concentrate on SC, socially economically deprived groups. They have used the word SCD G. Therefore, do not neglect them. Students from tribal area, students from deprived class. Unless you build confidence, unless you clear the barriers in learning for these students, they may not come up. They cannot come to the mainstream. Therefore, I think a good teacher should keep this aspect also in mind. Then he has to promote the student in identifying wherever the area in which he is very much comfortable in coming up in life. And be a parent for the learner. I think this is very, very important. How many of us have assumed this parent role in guiding the learner? We have to think twice. Provide emotional support. This is equally important. Many learners have scored higher marks they are able to do. Studies have revealed some of the highly intelligent students, they are having some kind of perverted intelligence. Little balance is not there. Emotional balance is not there. Therefore, experts are saying, as a teacher, your concern is also to see that you must make the students emotionally comfortable. Learners are motivated, I already mentioned. Resourceful in decision making. Many students do not know. Sir, I have done my, after doing my degree, I do not know what to do. Can you guide them? Some decision they cannot take. I got this job, I got the other job. Sir, would you help me? Which one is better? Coordinate activities of class and school. Impart knowledge and skills. Promote creativity is very, very important. As I highlighted earlier, I think creativity cannot be neglected. It is the creativity which is there among the learners. It makes our tomorrow's world beautiful. Colorful world, it is possible because of our creative students. Many problems can be solved because of our creative students. When we think of creativity, we always refer to other countries because we are talking creativity at the information level 20 years back. Now we have taken them to the understanding level, whereas other countries, already they have taken this concept to the application level. Therefore, anything you can take up, they have got the solution. I think America, for example, Korea, they have come out with the cars which can run on their own. Driver need not be there. Without the driver, vehicle can be instructed to park a vehicle. And the driver can stand in a place, owner can stand in a place, ask the car to come, like how we are asking the horse to come earlier, like that you can do. How it is possible? I think creativity. Then a lifelong learner by seeking knowledge and apply the knowledge for solving problems. Very, very important. Application. Ultimately, any knowledge we give, students should be able to apply the knowledge for his own benefit as well as for the benefit of the society. I think I mentioned higher education means good teaching. Higher education means all those who have involved in education also should involve, and they have to perform multiple roles I mentioned. Now, friends, in the NAAC, when we go for assessment, we have kept these 7 criteria. Number 1 is about the curricular aspect. We ask them, what about your curriculum? How have you designed your curriculum? Is it an updated curriculum? Second one is about the teaching, learning, and evaluation. All the 3 are very important. Research innovations, infrastructure, student support and progression, governance, leadership, etc., management. Then lastly, institutional values and best practices. Ultimately, we ask you, all right, when you are giving good education, fine. Please tell me 2 best practices, what you are having in your institution. In the name of providing the good quality education, what best practices you have evolved, best practices you have developed. Now, friends, NAAC has published series of books on best practice series. Recently, we have done one on management. Therefore, these books, if you read, you'll get an idea how we can evolve and how we can consider one as a best practice. This is from the NAAC's perspective. I just gave this as an additional information, but my focus is upon teaching, learning, and evaluation. Very, very, very important. Now, friends, it is because of teaching, because of learning, and because of evaluation, the whole thing is there. Therefore, one should be extremely careful when we are talking about this. Now, the next one. All right, sir, content part, we know teacher, teaching, teacher's quality, fine. Now, my last focus is this, which is very, very important. That is about the pedagogy. What is this pedagogy? Most of you are familiar. The method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept. Therefore, pedagogy concerned with your teaching. It refers to the art and science of teaching. Sometimes we say teaching is science because it is prepared on best planning. Teaching is an art because people have got that giftedness to teach effectively. Therefore, teaching is both art as well as science. How do you consider? For you, is it an art? It is an art means you have got special inclination, passion. You have got hereditary influence. Or else, no, sir, I like, but I'm a very systematic person. I prepare very well to my class. No, therefore, I believe that it is a scientific approach. Teaching is nothing but a scientific approach where how we plan, like that it will be there. Good, you can take. Then, when we think of a pedagogy, are you talking about the pedagogy related to the teacher-centered education or learner-centered education now? Therefore, in the pedagogy, if the teacher wanted to give a big show, pedagogy related with the teaching. No, sir, I wanted to give a lot of freedom to the learner, lot of emphasis to the learner. Therefore, I want to make my pedagogy learners friendly, learner centered. That also we can do it. So pedagogy is concerned with the way in which you wanted to make your teaching to happen. Whether you would like to dominate and teach, or you want to give more freedom to the students to learn on their own, it is related with that. Pedagogical principles are the fundamental points of orientation for professionals in educational context. The pedagogical principles will give some kind of orientation for the professors or for the teachers who are there in the teaching profession, keeping the education context in mind so that they can teach effectively, that can result in effective learning. The key pedagogical principles focused on teaching, learning, arrangements, and methods. Therefore, whenever I think of a pedagogy, focus is there on teaching, focus on learning, focus is there on the methods of teaching. Sometimes we say teacher-dominated methods like lecture method, demonstration method, then or your seminar method, whereas the learner-centered approaches are group discussions, small group discussions, problem-solving situations, or brainstorming sessions. Like that, even in higher education, it is possible to make our teaching pedagogy-oriented. If it is a typically pedagogy-oriented, you also get a lot of confidence about your teaching. And I'm sure students also will like your teaching and they get the benefit of good teaching. That's why we say every teacher should be trained with respect to pedagogical principles. Those who want to become teachers at the school level, they will go for B.Ed training. But those who are going to teach at the college level, yesterday they have finished their MSc, today they go for teaching. How do they teach effectively? Because in the name of the pedagogical training, we make the teacher to understand who is your target group, who is your learner, at what age he is learning. Then so many theories are there with respect to learning. What principles are there with respect to learning? Then laws are there with respect to learning. Therefore, how do you apply those principles, laws of learning, so that students can learn very effectively? I think a beautiful point, beautiful discussion about this now. And methods, relationship to pupils and learning environment. Classroom environment also we take into consideration when we think of the pedagogical application of pedagogical principles. The general education principles we take, and ultimately we are also conscious about the expected learning outcome or the skills among the students. Now here, I have structured my talk under the 5 models that I have selected today. I am going to brief you on these 5 models. They are called the pedagogical models. Number 1 is called the traditional teaching model. Traditional teaching model is teacher-centered model, where teacher, like our traditional classroom teacher, he will not allow any students to make any noise in the class, nor he will allow the students to ask any question. He will restrict, but he will dominate the whole class and he is going to teach. Would you like to become such kind of traditional teacher? If you become, it is fine, but students will not be there to listen to you. Therefore, you have to think the drawbacks of this traditional method of teaching. The second model is called the behavioral pedagogical model. The behavioral pedagogical model means, in this case, it is influenced by the great psychologists like Pavlov. Some of you may be familiar. Skinner, you may be very familiar. They also will speak about the type of conditioning that helps our learning. And they also believe that if you want teaching should happen, teacher should bring some behavioral changes in the class. And learning means bringing desirable changes among the learner, whatever may be the level of teaching. The student's behavior should change. There should be a desirable behavioral change. And in order to bring that desirable behavioral change, a teacher, one who goes to the class, should have a specific concept of learning objectives. He has to mention, I go to teach the calculus to my students. My objectives are, today I'm going to teach the semiconductors in my class. My objectives are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or he may say, today I am going to teach about the pedagogical principles in my class. The objectives are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, friends, if you are teaching is objective-based, it is good. Sometimes people also will say performance-based teaching, objectives-based teaching. But we are all from pedagogy. We believe that a good teacher, if he knows what are the objectives with which he is teaching in the class, I think the success rate will be very high. Therefore, the learning objectives which are observable and measurable also. Therefore, all objectives, it can be 3 objectives, 4 objectives. You should be able to observe the behavioral change among the students. If possible, you also can measure in terms of, let us say, quantitatively, you can measure 30% learning, 40% learning, 40% achievement, 20% achievement. And then teacher, he will study the previous ability of the apprentices of the learner, teach them the methodology to follow, manage reinforcements when one of the objectives has been reached, and check if learning has occurred or not. Therefore, with 4 objectives, I went to the class. I provided some experiences to the students. Out of 4 objectives, only 2 objectives I have achieved. That is the evaluation that gives the feedback to you. Therefore, would you like to have this behavioral model wherein you insist upon the learning objectives? Now, friends, here, I request you to once again recollect the contributions made by Benjamin Bloom. Benjamin Bloom has given the beautiful informations regarding these objectives like cognitive domain, then affective domain, psychomotor domain, and even engineering colleges. I am really surprised. They have got a very sound knowledge about the aspects related to the behavioral aspect related, and also the classification given by Benjamin Bloom. And NAAC also insists, and they are asking, do you have program objectives? Very important, friends. I hope you are all listening. What is the program? If you are running a 3 years degree program in pharmacy, or 3 years degree program in management, business management, they expect, do you have specific program outcomes? Do you think that your students are aware about the specific behavioral, the program outcomes? Did you put these program outcomes on your institutional website? That is called PO. We say POs. POs are very, very important, because earlier when we were all students, we did not know why we are learning. What is that outcome after 3 years of degree? We did not know. But the program of objectives, if you can refer, it will give you a clear-cut idea. The students, after undergoing 3 years of vigorous training, maybe in Kristu Jayanti or Christ, or maybe Ramakrishna Vidyalaya or somewhere there, they will be acquiring these aspects. Like in that way, program outcomes are very important. Second one is called the course outcomes, depending upon the subject, whatever you are teaching, what course you are teaching to them. Third one, we call them as the learning objectives in the classroom, whatever you are going to achieve. There were program outcomes, learning outcomes, course outcomes. All the 3 are very important. Unless your teaching is oriented and influenced by these 3, your teaching becomes mechanical. Many may not be able to appreciate. Students may get the marks, but they may not be able to apply this knowledge either in the area of higher education or research, or maybe in their societal situation. Now, I think time is running. The next one is called constructivist pedagogical model. This is also very important. This is a friendly model. And constructivist theory, it is a theory of teaching and learning in which the pedagogical principles are applied, in which the learners are empowered and learners are facilitated to a greater extent, such that the learners create their own knowledge. The teacher, he should be a facilitator, that's all. That's why earlier, everything teacher is to present. Now, constructivist approach says, why do you say that they do not know? They have passed their earlier classes. They have got some previous knowledge. You provide some facilities that will help them to get what knowledge you are talking. They can understand. Thereby, they create the knowledge what you are talking. They create on their own. They discover on their own. Then if that is not up to the mark with respect to the textbook language, then you can guide them. Then you can correct them. That's why, friends, we are talking about two kinds of constructivism usually in higher education. One is called the cognitive constructivism, other one is called the social constructivism. In cognitive constructivism, we are asking the students to use their earlier knowledge, earlier skills to receive the new knowledge, so that the new knowledge can be understood in a better way. That's called cognitive we say. Social constructivism means make the students to discuss in a group. It is a social interaction in which each student has got its own background. Each student has got his own level of learning. Each student has got his own exposure, her own exposure. Therefore, if you put them in the group, the way in which they are going to interact, they'll interact, and ultimately they come outside. This is what you have understood about the hints, whatever you have given. Like that, we have got cognitive constructivism. Other one we got as a social constructivism. The next one is called the cognitive pedagogical model. It is similar to the one like behavioristic, what I discussed earlier. The cognitive model, also known as the developmentalist model, it is based upon the Jean Piaget's developmental idea, in which the students will be changing every day. They will pass through different stages like infant stage, then adolescent stage, adult stage, like that. As and when they pass through different stages of development, their cognitive abilities also keep on changing. Therefore, if you wanted to teach the learner, better you try to know their cognitive abilities, their cognitive level, their mental abilities, mental skills, so that your teaching becomes very easy. In that way, it is influenced by the theory given by Jean Piaget, and some people also will adopt that, and wherein they can teach. Then fifth one is called the social pedagogical model. It is based on the maximum development of the abilities. Not only scientific or technical contents are studied in this approach, or passed on to the students in this approach, but at the same time, we are making them to become, develop values and attitudes now. Therefore, whenever you are teaching a subject, kindly keep what is the social benefit of this particular subject I am teaching. I am teaching economics. So what is the benefit? I am teaching sociology. I am teaching anthropology. Like that, somewhere or the other, whenever you are teaching, people will say your social pedagogical model will help you to develop the required values and attitudes among the learners. Now, friends, in conclusion, the teacher's preparation of the content is important. Selection of the critical pedagogy, I'm using the word critical. Nowadays, some people are also using the word digital pedagogy. Recently, I heard people from Tamil Nadu, teacher education universities, they were talking about the digital pedagogy. Digital pedagogy is also a new terminology that has come. Do you use that digital platform? Do you use a digital method of teaching to the students now? That is also a digital pedagogy, they say. But here I'm using the critical pedagogy, means you have to decide which one is good, which one is bad. Your students from rural side, urban side, sophisticated area, you decide what methodology goes. Don't worry about whatever the models that I have discussed. Practicing the principles of pedagogy is equally important. Like motivation is important, effective presentation is important, illustrations is important, analogy is very important, keeping some of these principles. Awareness of different pedagogical models, like try to be aware of these models, then consciously implement these models wherever it is possible. then linking the objectives with your learning experience and learning outcomes, then try to get feedback about the effectiveness, sorry, there is a mistake, effectiveness of the pedagogical models applied in the teaching. Therefore, students are the better judges. Therefore, you can ask them some feedback regarding what methodology I followed, what approach I followed, is it useful to you, not useful, how best I can improve, how best I can change if you can say it is possible. Now, friends, I think ultimately, I wanted to conclude saying that pedagogical principles definitely makes teachers to teach very effectively, irrespective of whatever the level in which that they are teaching. Lower level may be more focused, but as and when they go higher level now, only they have to take the essence of these models and teach. Now, I don't say this model is good, that model. It is left to the teacher, practice in the classrooms, get the feedback and decide. If he's on the right side, I think that's the best way he can proceed. Then a teacher, as I mentioned, he must play multiple roles. As I mentioned, is one of the responsibilities, according to me, is to develop the emotional behavior among students. We all live at the mercy of our emotions. Our emotions influence and shape our desires, thoughts, and behaviors, and above all, our destiny. Therefore, I think a teacher should be emotionally matured, very important, and see that the student should also, so that wherever they go, success will be there. Friends, I appreciate the organizers for having given me this opportunity to share my limited knowledge to the experienced people who are all there, visible to you people and not visible to me. But I think you have heard whatever I said now. Thank you very much. If time permits, if organizer permits, maybe one or two questions I can answer. Thank you. Thank you very much. Aruna Devi, madam, fine.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Dear participants, if you have any queries, you can put it in chat box or you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you.
No questions? Participants are there?
Sir,
yes.
the models that we're talking about.
Yeah, Professor, tell me.
Yes, sir. The models that we're talking about, behavioral model and constructivist model, I mean, how it can be, how it can differentiate each other. Because as a teacher, when we go to the class, we don't stick on to one model.
Exactly.
It must be situational model.
Exactly. That's why, sir, you are perfectly right. Therefore, here, the knowledge, true knowledge, correct knowledge about these models are essential. I expect the teachers to keep these models on one hand, and then inside in their classroom, they can make use of these models in different combinations depending upon how it works in the classroom. Like the objectives, as I mentioned, the behavioristic model where we keep the objectives in mind. I think that works very well. Any subject I'm going to teach, I have to keep the objectives. Knowledge level, what objectives? Understanding level, what objectives? Application level, what objectives? Like that, if I keep those objectives in mind and relating my content with that and proceed, definitely my teaching will be effective. Therefore, a teacher has to decide, and there is no hard and fast rule that he has to follow only cognitive model or constructivist model. Usually constructivist model are very much effective for the lower level, especially school students. It works very well because they depend so much on the teacher. Whereas in higher education, so much of dependency is not there, but nothing wrong if you take the essence of that model and try it in the classroom. Like social model, mix them in the group, give them group activity. I think that group activity wherein they come out with something new, that indicates that the social constructive approach you are following in the classroom. Sir.
Sir, there is a request from Professor Madhumati. Ma'am request to elaborate on the difference between PEOS and POS and their mapping.
Now, I think program outcomes means if a student is coming, let us say for a 2 years B.Ed, then we wanted to have what exactly the program will teach them. Like probably I may just tell them, make them to have a sound knowledge about the psychologically related aspects now. Therefore, after 2 years of training, they will be able to understand the psychological aspects related to the learner. What is learner, learner's characteristics, how learner is going to develop. Like adolescents, for example, if he is a learner in my target group, I can understand physical development, how it happens. Like that, subject-wise in the program, you can highlight. Like whatever the subjects you are teaching. Like in B.Ed, we teach about the psychology we teach, then philosophical foundations we teach, sociological foundations we teach, methodology we teach, now subject-wise. Then apart from that, whatever the activities in which that they are involving, that you can highlight. Whatever the skills that they have developed or you are intending to develop, you can highlight upon that. Then apart from that, you also can tell them what the practical aspect that you have taught them. There were theory, practice, subject-wise, elective-wise, depending upon if it is a choice-based system. All those things comes under the program. Course-wise means like it can be a small course with 5 units or 6 units now. That can be, or some people will also will say a short-term course of 6 months, short-term course of 1 year. Then what are the objectives for the short-term course? Now, in that way, they also will speak about the course. Therefore, course can be relative. How you define the course, like that you define about the outcome for the course. But learning outcome means what is that you are expecting? If I teach the students about the digital platform or blended learning, after my teaching about blended learning, students will be able to understand the concept of blended learning. Number 2, the principles to be followed while introducing the blended learning in the classroom. In that way, you can have a specific learning outcomes when you are talking about the teaching situation. Course outcome, depending upon what course you would like to introduce. What is the purpose of introducing a course now? 6 months course, 3 months course, add-on course, value-added courses, like that. Program means it's a 3 years degree course, 4 years degree course now. After doing 4 years course, what is that you are intending the students to have it? Knowledge domain, then competency domain, skill domain, in that way. If you refer to some of the, it is available online, and engineering college also you can check now. And some of the universities already they have kept the, revealed all these aspects in their website. They can check and they can find it. Right. Okay.
Sir, do you suggest any tool to identify the learning level of a student?
The tool.
Any tools?
No. I think one method here, learning level means first point, already we are having the scholastic achievement test, correct? Through the scholastic achievement test, it is possible for me to know, like physics I taught. I give him a physics test through which I'll try to understand 40% understand, 40% learning, 50%. And in my tool also, I can just say knowledge level varies, understanding level varies, application level varies, problem solving level varies. I think you can do it. Therefore, already scholastic achievement tools are available, which we can use it, especially with respect to the subject now. Apart from that, they have got other tools also. But here, since we are talking about the subject now, one method is that. But there are different types of achievement test. Like the test what we use in the classroom is slightly different. And test what we are using for the common entrance test, for example, NEET test, for example, there they are going to increase the level of understanding they want to test at a higher level. There was sometimes they say 30% knowledge questions, then maybe another 30%, maybe 40% understanding. Depending upon that, through achievement test, it is possible you can test. Other tests are also available online, they can search. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anything you said, ma'am? No.
No, sir.
Then we can wind up, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Seriously, it is really a wonderful session.
Thank you.
You have started with the principles of teaching, and you have nicely narrated the 5 pedagogical approach, which is highly essential right now. The pedagogical leadership requires careful revisioning within different level of leaderships. So it becomes a part of our dynamic relationship between the teacher, student, and the institutional necessity. So on behalf of everyone gathered here, I submit my sincere thanks to Dr. S. Srikanta Swamy, Academic Consultant, Research and Analysis Wing of NAAC Bengaluru, India, for spending his valuable time and delivered interactive keynote session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I also thank Professor Aloysius Edward, Dr. Aruna Devi, Father.
It's our pleasure, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, Augustine, and all of you, and all my friends who have participated. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we have reached the end of our international conference. See, the best and the beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt by the heart. Thank you is one such among them. I consider it a great privilege to propose the vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have witnessed this grand virtual international conference. Today, my words are not enough to express our gratitude to our conference chief guest, Dr. S.C. Sharma, Director, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAAC, Bengaluru, who inaugurated the virtual international conference and gave a perfect start for the program. Sir will be remembered forever by Kristu Jayanti for graciously blessing this event and his valuable address. I thank him and I express my sincere thanks to our beloved principal, Reverend Dr. Agustin George, for his stewardship, determined support, and guidance provided in making this international conference a great success, and for those words of wisdom that radiated a source of energy within all of us. Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
My heartfelt thanks to Father Lijopi Thomas, Financial Administrator and Head, Department of Computer Science, Father Emmanuel, Director, Jayanti and Extension Services, and Father Som Zakaria, Director, Library and Infrastructure Development, and all the fathers of management team for their valuable guidance and encouragement in the conduct of this conference. Thank you, fathers.
Thank you. Thank you.
I extend my harness gratitude to Dr. Aloysius Edward, Dean, Commerce and Management, Coordinator IQAC, for his tremendous leadership and tireless support in all the phases of this virtual conference in making it a successful event. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
My sincere thanks to the three vibrant coordinators of this conference, Professor C.A. Annie Stephen, Professor Jimin Matthew, Professor Chalraj Emmanuel, for their meticulous planning and execution of all the tasks. Thank you, teachers.
Thank you.
I also thank the organizing committee members, including Dr. Calistus Jude, Dr. Gobakumar, and all the IQAC members for their valuable contributions. And most importantly, I appreciate and sincerely thank each and every delegate across the country who has taken time out of their busy schedule and responsibilities and are here with us today to plunge in innovative ideas and connect with dynamic and progressive educators to share their uniqueness, thus building a path to excellence, making this international conference a successful one. Thank you, dear delegates.
Ma'am, can you please paste the feedback form that they can fill the feedback form and certificate?
Yeah. I submit my sincere thanks to the tech team led by our admins, Mr. Amir, Mr. Ajit, Mr. Sebastian, for their support in managing the virtual meeting, preparing the brochure and certificate. So before we conclude, few announcements. So I request all of you to turn on your video to take few pics. Kindly turn on your video, please.
Yeah, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, dear delegates. The feedback and attendance form for today's session is posted in the chat box. It will be remained for some time. So you can just click in and enter your details, how it has to be printed as on the certificate. So I repeat again, kindly enter the details carefully, how you wanted to be printed on the certificate. The same way you can fill in the details. So the entered details will be printed in the certificate and embedded with a QR code, and it would be uploaded in our college website, and it will be ready for digital valuation anytime, and it will reach you by 9th December 2020. So for the updates regarding the certificate, you can follow us in our WhatsApp group and our NEP conference email ID as well. So I repeat one more time, the feedback link is posted. Kindly carefully fill the link and the certificate will reach you by 1 week, that is 9th of December 2020, you'll get your certificates. Thank you. So shall we conclude by national anthem?
No.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जाहे तब शुभ आशीष मागे गाए तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye, man. Thank you, madam. Aruna, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.